Good evening or good morning wherever you are in the world. I'm Samantha Joseph and I'm moderating the ninth YouTube session of the sixth fall edition of our Read for Pixels campaign. Through Read for Pixels, the Pixel Project is collaborating with 15 award-winning best-selling authors to raise awareness about violence against women and to raise funds for the Pixel Project to keep our efforts to end violence against women alive and kicking. We'll be telling you more about the Read for Pixels fundraiser, which has lots and lots of exclusive author goodies a little later in this session. And you can find out more about the Pixel Project at www.thepixelproject.net. So today we have a very special guest for our live Read for Pixels discussion and Q&A session.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. This is Nicky Drayden, the fabulous and critically acclaimed science fiction and fantasy author.
Thank you.
So Nikki is a systems analyst from Austin, Texas, and when she's not debugging code, she's detangling plot lines and mixing metaphors. Her debut novel, The Prey of Gods, is set in a futuristic South Africa brimming with demigods, robots, and hallucinogenic hijinks. Nikki has also generously donated some lovely goodie bundles to the stash of author goodies we have as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally Up fundraising page. So the first goodie bundle is Nicky Drayden's Tempting Temper goodie bundle. And the goodie bundle includes one signed and personalized copy of Temper in paperback, 2 wristbands, 2 sets of trading cards, 1 Temper postcard, 2 book club postcards, 2 Dick Dick stickers. If you are new to Nikki's work, this is the perfect time to dip your toes into her genre-bending stories, which blur the boundaries between fantasy and science fiction in unexpected ways. The bundle is also a perfect Christmas present for any avid science fiction and fantasy reader. So there were only 3 of these Temper bundles available for US donors. And now there's only 1 left. So thank you, Shirley Burke and Crystal Weber. It's first come, first serve, so get donating now for that last bundle. For the next goodie bundle, it's Nicky Drayden's Book and Tentacle bundle. And actually, we'd like to thank donor Crystal Weber for getting her hands on this. So this very special goodie bundle comprised a signed and personalized advanced reader's copy of Nikki's upcoming novel, Escaping Exodus, and 1 hand-crocheted tentacle alien. The donor had got to choose from any of the little aliens pictured. So doesn't that sound excellent? So you only have 1 more bundle left. And so far, we've raised $1,350 towards our $5,000 goal, which is actually our slowest fundraiser yet. So please give generously before the fundraiser ends in October 2019. All the funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. And if you're watching this session on YouTube right now, you'll also be able to ask Nikki questions live. Just make sure you're logged into your YouTube account so that you can type your questions into the chat box to the right of the YouTube screen, and Denisha, who is today's producer and chat box moderator, will relay them to me for Nikki to answer. So I'm going to put Nikki on screen now because she's going to read a little bit. She's going to have a little reading from her book. So over to you, Nikki.
All right. Thank you very much for the lovely introduction, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to read a little bit from Escaping Exodus, which is out October 15th. And it's an Afrofuturistic love story set in space aboard a giant space alien. And so people are living inside this alien, and it's all very squishy and fun and dark and weird, as all of my books are so far. And I'm just going to read a little bit of the first chapter, and then we'll talk a little bit. Our family stasis pod seems impenetrable as I rub my hand over the inner surface, looking for the exit seam. I had underestimated the depth of the darkness that would saturate the pod. And without vision, without hearing, and with my mouth and lungs and stomach filled with sleep balm, touch is the only tool to help me escape. I feel the flesh of my mothers and fathers beneath me, bodies limp and near lifeless as they wait the construction of our new world. Me, I'm not that patient. This is my first excavation, and I don't intend to miss it. Matris, my head mother and our clan's matriarch, had been raised from our pod well before my sedatives wore out, probably as soon as the herd was in sight. My fingers twitch, imagining Matris as she took aim and dealt the crippling final blow to the spacefaring beast. At our next exodus, Matris promised that she would let me drive the helm, but that's still some 12 years off. I can't wait a moment longer, though, knowing all there is going on around me. Beneath my desperate hands, the soft nap of the stasis pod goes to partially healed scar tissue, smooth and thin. I pull the bone shard I'd smuggled in here, my laugh a silent jiggle of liquid-filled lungs. If Matris knew her accountancy guards had missed it during their oh-so-thorough inspection, she'd have them strung up for a week. The incision I make is slow and precise, matching the original hair for hair. I can't leave any evidence of my excursion. A gentle blue light seeps through the cut. I push apart the layers and press my head through. Air hits my face, and the instinct to cough catches me by surprise. Sleep bomb spews from my mouth and my nose as sweet air fills them, quickly washing away a metallic aftertaste. Deity's bells, I curse upon the memory of every heart father there ever was. I quickly recoil, covering my mouth with bomb-slick hands. I'd imagined my first words on this new world would be something more profound, something graceful and fitting of the clan's future matriarch. The cargo hold feels more like a crypt, half full of oblong sacks, just large enough to house the families who opted to sleep through the construction. In a few months, they'll wake up to perfect replicas of their former homes, detailed down to every chip in their countertops, every scuff upon their sickle-scaled floors, right down to the creak of the bone boards beneath. Matris says that they have forgotten that we are nomads, and that is for the best. It's better for them to focus their efforts on infusing the economy and advancing technology than worrying over the droll trivialities of beast work. Beast work. The promise of seeing our new beast before excavation work begins thrills me to my core. I don't know why anyone would opt to sleep this time away when they could be witnessing the workers sinking their siphons into the first artery. I'd practically begged Matris to be woken early, but she insisted that this was a delicate time for her, and she didn't need the distraction of family as critical decisions were being made. I hope I'm not too late. I hurry, pulling my body through the incision I now realize is too narrow for my hips. I twist, trying to finesse my way through. My feet find purchase on the familiar ripple of my Bapa's abdomen and the indistinguishable arm crook of one of my mothers. The delicate seam tears, running jagged this way and that. I ignore the pit in my stomach. It's still early. Maybe it'll heal in time. Maybe I can bribe the accountancy guards to look the other way instead of tattling to Matris. Psst, Seska, comes a voice from inside the hold. Adala's voice for sure, but I don't see her. Where are you? I whisper. Here, Adala says. She peeks out from a stack of deflated pods and smiles at me, her hands and face already darkened by the beast's blue-green ichor. I clench up, my stomach raw and sore with disappointment. I've missed the first letting? She shrugs. You slept 2 days too long. Adela looks around the cargo hold. She approaches along the wall, slipping in and out of shadows until she's upon me. She frowns at the seam rip and the steady burble of sleep balm wasting over the edges. Then, with the beast worker's strength and grace, she hoists me up and out of the pod, like my bones are made for mad vapor. Why didn't you wake me? I asked Adala. This beast has spirit. Your matris called old hands to steady it. But it'll last us 14 years. The Senate agrees already, and you know how often they agree. Great, I grumble. That's 2 extra years I have to wait to see the next first letting. Don't be mad. Adalis pulls a stiff roll of fabric from her pack and an iridescent blue of a beast worker's suit. The natural creases of the beast hide still run through it. She hands it to me, and I slip out of my nakedness and into my disguise. I notice how she's filling out her beast worker suit. Where she used to be long and lean, now she's got muscles straining the fabric. I could kick myself when I realize why. She's been training hard in hopes of getting promoted to the Icrovats. Ideally to the beast's primary heart, but any major organ would do. or so she said. The heart is the only place where Adela belongs, and we both know it. Just as I open my mouth to ask her how her training is going, we hear the footsteps of an accountancy guard echoing through the hold. Adela nudges me behind a pile of flattened stasis pods, our bodies caught between it and the wall. My lips are upon Adela's ear. Maybe she won't notice the rip, I murmur. You must have already taken a sip from Mad Vapors, Seska. You know lash counters notice everything. I do know. The members of the accountancy guard, or lash counters as the beast workers call them, are renowned for their heightened senses, which has landed me in more trouble than I'd like to admit. Stay here, stay quiet, I say, wriggling my body back out into the openness of the hold. Where are you going? Turning myself in. No use in both of us getting caught. My hero, Adela giggles and catches herself. But you don't have to do that. I'll stand by you, proudly. Besides, I've got strong thumbs. I can hang for days. My stomach cramps up at the thought of Adela suffering through that punishment. I mean, really cramps up. Worse than it ever has before. A moan escapes my lips. Are you okay? Adela asks. Please allow me to come with you. Finally, the ache subsides. No, stay here, I tell her. Consider that an order from your future matriarch. She sighs, rolling her eyes at me as I gather to prepare to face the bane of my existence. The accountancy's guard's footsteps are headed my way, but when I turn to face her, my jaw drops. Wait, I say, a pained exhale as my eyes stick to the sculpted flesh beneath the sensory-damping layers of his uniform. Matrix's new male accountancy guard, Mother's Mercy, looks down at me through his bone-rimmed goggles. I cannot see his eyes through the darkened lenses, but his scowl line is more than obvious. Accountancy guards are bad in general, but Wyatt is the worst, out to prove to himself and to Matrix that he's more than capable of working outside the family unit. Because of his insecurities, he tattles like his livelihood depends on it. And that means there's no talking my way out of this one. Matrix already knows. Maitreling Calais, Wyatt says to me with due respects, though it is the sloppy wave of obligation and not the stiff salute of reverence he gives to my head mother. Call me Seska, I grate at him. Better yet, don't call me anything at all. He says dismissively. Matrix wishes to speak to you, and your beast worker friend can come along too. My gut shifts yet again. There's no one else here. I escaped on my own, I say, willing my eyes not to dart in the direction of Adela's hiding spot. I smell ichor, Wyatt says. Perhaps one of your fellow accountancy guards tracked it through here, too busy prying into everyone else's business to watch where they're stepping. I cross my arms over my chest. Perhaps, he says, unconvinced, but I heard whispers, a conversation. I like to talk to myself. Is that a crime? We can keep playing these games if you like, Matron Link Calais, on our way to see Matrix Palatoba. Wyatt lays one of his white gloves around my wrist, the finest beast hide I've felt upon my skin, even more luxurious than Matrix's raiment. We both look at his hand upon me, and he snatches it away, but does not apologize for the offense. Beast worker Adela, he shouts into the hold. In the name of Matrix Palatoba, reveal yourself. Adela slinks out and stands by me, fingers clasped, tumbling her thumbs over and over each other. I cringe, admitting defeat. How did you know it was her? Best to know my enemy's strengths so that maybe next time we won't get caught. You're Nakshi, Wyatt says. They always brighten 2.5 shades when you share her company. I touch my cheeks, feeling the warmth budding where my ancestral tattoos sit. The heat-sensitive pigment in the Nakshi ink have betrayed me. You think you know me so well, I hiss? Though I can feel my tattoos brighten even further from a new kind of heat brewing within me. I know that you have ripened and that you are ready for womanhood. I've sent word of this ahead to your matrix as well. Wyatt bends down on one knee, wipes his index finger on the floor and turns it up so that I can see. A small dollop of blood stains the tip of his glove. The undeniable smirk of Mince's envy sitting on his lips. The cramping, the taste of iron in our sleep palm. All at once, my emotions cram up into my throat. The pride I should feel for finally catching up to my peers is squelched cold by the fact that Wyatt had discovered my first menses before I'd even known myself. As I as if I needed one more reason to hate him. From the pocket in his uniform, he pulls out a little black ledger that has haunted me since my early childhood, and apparently will follow me right into womanhood. He presses the blood droplet on the ledger sensor, then types something on the keyboard. Take me to my mother, I yell at him, the archaic term more of a cuss than a generic maternal designation, though there's definitely no need for me to specify which mother. We're done for. Is it?
Thank you so much, Nikki, for reading from your new book.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm going to go into the questions for you.
Okay, sounds great.
So, your book, The Prey of Gods, feature plenty of incredible female protagonists like Ria Natarajan and Nombula, who are very complex and empowered characters with agency. So, what or who are your inspirations for your female characters?
I will say, from a literary perspective, definitely Octavia Butler. She writes like the most amazing, powerful women characters, and she sticks them in these like impossible situations, and then they have to kind of like, you know, become leaders and figure things out. For example, in the Dawn series, we have a woman who has barely clung to life after, you know, an earth apocalypse, and there's just a few, you know, smattering of humans left on the earth, and aliens intervene and you know, take her aboard their ship, and she's put in this kind of precarious situation where they wake her up first and tell her that she is responsible for, you know, selecting the best candidates to reestablish like humanity. And so she has to like go through all these profiles and, you know, figure out who it would be the best group of people to reestablish Earth. And it's just like, how do you even make that decision? And then all the, you know, the drama she has to deal with, you know, throughout the series. And it's just really fun to see somebody put in that situation that you definitely don't want to be in yourself, but you get to live it through someone else's life. And also in like the parables of the sower and the talent, also we have kind of, you know, a situation where the United States has kind of, you know, become a failed state, and people have retreated into these little enclaves to protect themselves. And we have a young woman in this story who kind of, that's the world she knows. And then there's this like whole world outside the gates of her home that she knows is very dangerous, but she doesn't know a whole lot about it. And so, you know, the gates come crumbling down one day, and she's forced to, you know, make this exit from this somewhat stable life that she's known and go out into the world that's very dangerous, and have to convince people to, you know, team up with her so that maybe they can get something else started. And it's just really just seeing people in I like the hero that's, you know, the reluctant hero trope, when someone who doesn't want to be the hero is kind of forced into being a hero. So that's one of my favorites. And I think she has a lot of heroes like that. And I think a lot of my characters tend to be that way also.
Okay. That's true. The next question is, although Ria and Nombula are good people who make a conscious effort to try and behave well towards others, well, I mean, Nombula, maybe not so much Ria, they have at times behaved cruelly and also made mistakes. Why do you think it's important to have these kind of complex, even discomforting female characters in fiction?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that you described them as good characters. But definitely, I think they're kind of, I would say their hearts are in the right place. But I do like the complexities. I don't believe, you know, if you have a character who's all good and is making all the right decisions, that's just not very interesting to me. I like the characters who are put into tough situations and have to make tough decisions. And sometimes they make the wrong decisions, and sometimes they act impulsively and accidentally on purpose destroy tens of thousands of people. And sometimes they just, it takes them a while to learn what they need to learn. And it's kind of, we're able to go on that journey with them as they're picking up different pieces and going through kind of a self-discovery of what makes them tick. And it's just kind of the same process that anyone can go through, everyone should go to, trying to better yourself as you go along. And so I definitely don't like to draw a line between good and bad. And even Sydney, who's more of the villain in the story, like she has like good qualities as well. And so probably not as many as a lot of people do, but she cares for humanity. She wants to make humanity stronger, even if that means, technically she has like a lower body count than Namvula. So yeah.
Technically, yes. The next question is, all genres have their share of female stereotypes and tropes, and your books are essentially cross-genre. How do you break genre stereotypes and tropes to create female characters with agency while also dealing with the world around her, including situations that involve sexism, misogyny, and violence against women and girls?
Okay. I think I like kind of turning the tropes on their heads. Because I think once you realize what the tropes are, and it's hard to avoid them because, we see them so often that they kind of become ingrained in us. And so we have kind of, and they kind of flow, they flow with the culture too. And so we have like, the powerful, kick butt heroine that's like really popular now. But now we're kind of seeing a little bit of, not a backlash, but like, you can be a powerful hero in your story without having to like do combat. You can, be a powerful social worker. You could be a powerful nurse. We're kind of starting to reclaim some of those professions that we kind of gravitated away from in an attempt to, claim this power, which is kind of this maybe like more of a masculine approval that we were looking for, and come back and, say, no, like it's good. There are good, women fighters, and that is a part of, the collectiveness of womanhood, but there's also a lot of other ways that, women can be heroes. And so, and we see things like, hidden figures and stuff like that. So we can, we can do this awesome math, and, we can take care of people, be caring. And those are awesome qualities as well. For Escaping Exodus, my newest book, I kind of turn that around, kind of instead of living in a patriarchy, they are living in a matriarchy, which, it's easy to say, if women were in charge, things would be better, but I don't know if that's quite the case as happens in this book. But I think in any situation where there's an imbalance of power is like the real issue. And we kind of see that a little bit in the book. So I really liked, playing in the excerpt I read, like we had like a few like kind of assumptions, like there are a few accountancy guards that are male. So in this culture, like men are just barely starting to be able to work outside the home. So she assumes when she hears the accountancy guard coming, she assumes it's going to be a woman. And so it's kind of the similar things, that happen in reverse here. And just kind of play with those things. Because I like, if you start with a good character, you can just develop that in so many different directions.
So when you write a lot of characters, both female and male, but why do you think a lot of science fiction and fantasy authors still have trouble writing stories that pass the Bechdel test, despite the fact that there are a lot of things that women talk about other than men? And what can you suggest for writers who want to write female conversations and relationships realistically?
I can say, start looking at the percentages of male and female characters in stories. And if it's not 50, around 50-50, start to ask yourself why that is. And to ask yourself why that is in the real world as well when that happens. For instance, at my old office building, my window out, like, looked out onto like the executive boardroom window. And so like I just had like kind of this front row seat to all the board meetings that went on in our building. And for a very long time, up until like very recently, the demographics of the boardroom was pretty much, you could like guarantee it was going to be 100%, you know, white men every time there was a meeting in there. And it just kind of got to be like a joke in our office, you know, because it was just so prevalent. And it started to kind of change in the last couple of years a little bit. But you start thinking about like why is there such an imbalance in our real world, and why does that balance, you know, imbalance show up in our fiction too? And what can we explore ways to, especially in science fiction and fantasy, ways to combat that, and ways to think about how we can combat that and present that to the reader for something for them to think about. Maybe they could, you know, change things in their own personal lives. So it's not just, you know, fiction that we need to worry about, you know, women being able to talk to women in a situation. It's just like a real world problem as well. So yeah, I think we can start there and explore that through fiction.
Right. I want to go back to your female characters. They're written as generally flawed in some way, as people are. So when you're writing your female characters, do you ever feel pressure to make them likable? Have you gotten any flack for not making a female character likable enough?
I don't think that's something I necessarily am aiming for. I'm aiming for like a truthful character. And I mean, there's stuff to like about most people, I think, unless you're just really mean to people. Let's see. Like Temper, I had, which was my second book that came out. It was also set in South Africa. It had a society where everyone is born a twin, basically. And so, and this kind of explored gender in some different ways, because when you're in utero in this world, like you exchange genetic material. And so if there are two males, then, you know, you'll have two male kids. And if there's two females, you'll have two female kids. But then if there's a male and a female, they swap genders. They swap genetic material, including their sex chromosomes and stuff like that. And so you end up with a third and a fourth gender and sex in that book. And so I got to kind of explore a lot of different characters. I had twin girl characters who I really enjoyed writing, because you can kind of play with her. One was kind of more of like ditzy, very much into her appearances. And one of them was more like intellectual, into theater and that sort of thing. But then kind of who they were in the end didn't end up being kind of who they were portraying in the beginning. And so it was kind of fun to play with those kind of like, not stereotypes, but different, you know, facets of womanhood that we might see portrayed in fiction, and just doing different things with them and making them likable. I just think anyone's likable. I don't think that's something I necessarily aim for.
I'm going to go to the next bunch of questions. So in Prey, don't worry, we have some questions about Temper later.
Okay.
So, in Prey, women provide most of the momentum of the story, while in an unexpected twist, the male characters seem to be in the traditional role of victim of circumstance. So the male characters featured in Prey are mostly at odds with the usual science fiction and fantasy genre male characters, who are more often than not so-called alpha males. Did you deliberately avoid this toxic stereotype in your stories?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I would say I'm trying to think. Like, I don't think it was deliberate. Like I developed the characters, and that's just like who the character is. Um, I don't know. I'm trying to think of an example because we have like Musi. I mean, he's this
Mm-hmm.
pretty sweet guy, and he's kind of in touch with his softer side, even though he plays rugby and he's trying to be like kind of tough one of the guys. Like he does. He's a vegetarian for like ethical reasons and really cares about the environment, and which I don't think that's a quality that's either feminine or masculine in any way, but he's just kind of just well-rounded and likes a lot of different things. I'm trying to think. Yeah, he has his love story, and that's you get to see that kind of softer, kind of trying to figure his sexuality and where he wants to take his friendship with his friend Elkin. um I don't know, it's kind of like there's when a demigoddess is like trying to take over your city, like I don't know if there's a whole lot of time for like toxic masculinity. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just let the characters be themselves, and that's just what they do on the page.
So, following on to that, do you think that reframing how stories describe men away from hostile and toxic stereotypes and towards complexity and even vulnerability can be one of the ways science fiction and fantasy writers break away from tropes that promote toxic masculinity and the dehumanization of women?
Um, I think so. I think if we just start with well-rounded characters,
Mm-hmm.
and you can either show an example and of toxic masculinity and how to move that person to a better place in a narrative. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that would be necessarily a bad thing, because like some people are just we're all kind of brewing in this toxic situation together, and so we're kind of all responsible for fixing it, honestly, and to stop passing it down from generation to generation. And so if we can teach some people this is where I am, and then show them like this is where I could be, and then kind of like a progressive step in a narrative, I think that would probably be helpful for people. So I don't think, I mean, as long as things exist in the real world, I think it's hard to say, you can't have them in fiction, because that starts to kind of limit what, we can do with the art of writing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's like things to be explored. And even like, in Escaping Exes, I kind of, explore those ideas from the reverse, who like the most feminist, person in the book is the male, because it's mostly about trying to achieve equality, and then the males are the ones who are lacking the equality in this society. And so kind of flipping that on its head and seeing how that portrays they're where men are expected to be very polished and have their makeup done and look very presentable all the time, and aren't allowed in leadership roles. And so just that, yeah, you can explore that in so many different ways. And I don't think having nice characters or having even relatable characters sometimes is necessary for that.
Mm-hmm. Pursuant to that, like, do you think that the alpha male character, that whole stereotype, it's gonna stick around for a while, or do you see it slowly disappearing
um
in writing in general?
in writing, I can say it's not something that I'm particularly drawn to read.
Mm-hmm.
um so I could see where it maybe would become less popular, at least become less popular in a sense that we're making room for additional narratives. And
Mm-hmm.
so like the frequency maybe wouldn't be quite as many. And I think that's kind of the key thing, is like getting women into to the different media and to the different, entertainment sections, particularly women of color, disabled women, and LGBTQ2 women, and trans women, and getting all those voices. If we can get all those voices out there and make room for everyone to have their story told, then there's room for everyone's story. And so there might still be the alpha male story, because there are alpha males, and that's fine, and whoever wants to see that story can still see that story, but there's also room for all these other stories as well, which is really kind of interesting to me, because you get to see so many pieces of so many different people, even if you might not directly share that same experience. It just makes the world so much richer.
That's true. The line between consent and coercion isn't always clear in science fiction and fantasy books. So do you think that this is an issue that science fiction and fantasy writers have started tackling successfully in recent years?
Let's see. Could you give me an example of what you mean?
Oh, something that would be seen as creepy or stalkery or even rape, but it's just sort of brushed off because it's the main character that did it. So it's written in such a situation as no, it wasn't rape. But if you think about it, I mean, it definitely is.
And I don't want to stifle what people can write about at all. But I think the ways we handle those issues says a lot also. Sometimes people like to push boundaries, and I don't know if sometimes characters need to be called out on, if they cross a boundary, and sometimes they might not be called out, and it's left to reader to make those decisions on what it means in the broader scope of the narrative. I don't know. That's a really good question. I think that's up to the individual author, and for the reader to also put the work in to see, what the author has laid for the reader to interpret.
The next few questions are about both your books, Prey of Gods and Temper. So in both of them, in both Prey of Gods and Temper, you deal with issues of gender identity. So Prey has a transgender character who finally accepts themselves for who they are, and Temper has third and fourth genders. Why did you decide to explore the concept of gender in your books?
Well, in Temper, it kind of came up as a result of the kind of world building I started doing. And so the main premise was of the twins and them being able to swap DNA when they're, in the womb. So I just kind of wanted them to have that really deep connection where it's kind of harder to tell where one twin ends and the other one begins. But when I started thinking about, what if, they're a male and a female twin, if they're swapping DNA, what's going to happen? And so that was kind of, I'm going to say a happy accident of what happened, because that became one of my more things that really kind of challenged me in that story, and in good ways. It makes you do a lot of, research and on what that society would be like. And it's kind of one of my favorite things is to have different classes and have this stratification of power, and just all the different ways people divide themselves in humanity just really interests me for some reason. And so in Temper, there were just so many different ways people were divided. There's magical powers. So the strength, I don't know, there's gender, there's if you're the good or bad twin, because it's when the twins are young, they go through this ceremony that determines which twin has more vices and virtues than the other one. And so the one who has more vices is considered the bad twin, and the one who has more virtues is considered the good twin. So there's 7 virtues and vice combinations. And so so people are split, by gender, by sex, by class, by how many virtues and vices they have, even like down to the number. It's just very very hierarchical system. And that's like one of the things like I took with me from reading Octavia Butler's Dawn, was she had this statement in there that kind of humanity's downfall would be it's just insistent. Well, it's 1, being intelligent, and 2, being very hierarchical. And those things separate aren't necessarily a bad thing. Neither one of them is bad. But when you put them together, it's just like there's just no escape from the evil that will come from that, I guess I will say. And it's just really something that's kind of intrigues me, and it is a recurring theme throughout a lot of different works of mine.
Trans women face some of the highest numbers of gender-based violence in the world, and they've been battling for their civil rights for years. So representation is a big deal, especially in popular genres like science fiction and fantasy. It's a big deal in driving cultural change towards accepting trans women.
Mm-hmm.
So in Prey, the character Felicity Lyons becomes empowered by her femininity as opposed to limited by it.
Right.
Do you think that Felicity has an important statement to make about gendered expectations and the experience of being female?
I really liked that we got to see like kind of her coming into her own and figuring things out. And I think I made a comment in there that, she's like pushing 40, 42 or something like that. And just to be questioning herself at that age, like kind of who is she to be questioning herself? But like in truth, sometimes it takes a while to figure out who you are. And just, I think hopefully that's encouraging for late bloomers to, follow that path and find what makes you happy, and, follow that to wherever it leads you. And so I think in that regard, where she didn't know for so long, and also there were magical elements kind of at play for why she didn't know. Yeah, hopefully, sometimes it just helps to be even seen a little bit within science fiction and fantasy, within fiction. Sometimes you might be reading this book in a place where it's not safe to, express your gender. And so that could be kind of like a little bit of a healing salve, just to be able to see and imagine along with the characters. So hopefully, people can find little bits of themselves in there.
So following on to that, stories are one of the most powerful ways of bringing about cultural change. So your books all feature some form of violence, including violence against women. How do you find that balance between showing violence as an integral part of the story and not showing violence gratuitously?
I think because I don't like to see gratuitous violence, I think it's easier for me to avoid it in my writing, and to kind of ride around it a little bit and become a little bit more, I guess, purple in my prose when describing what's going on, and using metaphors or whatever to put a little bit of a distance, because it is, the world is, a messed up place, and then the worlds in my fiction are messed up places, and lots of bad things happen. So I don't necessarily want to pull back from, that truth, but also think, to show as much as you need to show, and then kind of get out there. And that goes for like pretty much, every aspect of writing, whether it's a sex scene or any kind of scene. You just need to be efficient, show what needs to be shown, to get the story, through that point.
How do you think science fiction and fantasy authors can tackle the issue of violence against women without falling back on harmful stereotypes and tropes?
Um, well, I mean, we have the advantage of creating our own worlds that don't necessarily have to align with the real world. So I think that helps some. So, and I think just like science fiction and fantasy in general are, they're intellectual pursuits, questioning why things are the way they are, questioning how things would be different if so and so happened, like alternate histories, or questioning where we would like to be in the future, or what we should be warned about might be coming in our future. And so I think, you know, when half of the population of the world is women, and hopefully half the population of a book is, women, those things are going to become fairly obvious within the writing, I would think. Yeah.
I think this question is kind of related to that, like because many people in the anti-violence against women movement say that male violence is the main, if not the root cause of violence against women and girls. How do you think stories and books like yours can help move this conversation forward in a constructive way? Because you mentioned that stories and books like yours, they they make people question. What do you think would happen if like they start questioning, and then what goes on after that?
Um, I it's a lot to put on a book and on authors to solve these, real world problems. I think most authors can kind of hope to do is just kind of poke him and hope people kind of pay attention. Because I don't know if there's, everyone has their ideas, and I'm not necessarily a prescriptive writer, and so I like to pose questions and then allow the reader to kind of come up with their own solutions a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that is, I don't know if that's a question that can be pinned on, fairly pinned on, literature.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think just how we handle books can be uh, done a lot better. This whole notion, I know in elementary schools or whatever, there's the notion of girl books, and there's the notion of boy books, and boys can't read girl books, but girls can kind of read boy books, but they still might get teased about it a little bit. And so I think if we can undo, that thinking, especially starting with, young kids, and have, it seems like even, educators who are usually well-meaning are doing things that are counterproductive to this conversation. For example, if there's a female author that comes to speak who might have written a book with, a female main character, maybe all the girls in the class are invited to the library to listen to that, author, while the boys are not, or something like that. And so very early on, boys learn to not value things that are, deemed girls, or even television shows or movies like Frozen, which, you might say it's a girl's movie. They're, two powerful female leads, but the majority of speaking lines in that movie are, basically men. So every other character in the movie is a man. So if we can start young, I say start, encouraging boys to read stories with, female protagonists, and try not to make those, judgments, and let them read whatever they want to read, basically.
That's true. So I'm going to go on to our final question.
Okay.
You have been so very supportive of our Read for Pixels campaign and our anti-violence against women as a whole. So I have to ask this question. Why do you support the Pixel Project and the cause to end violence against women?
I think it's just really important to start, to start asking our questions why we are having violence against women, and why, to break that down even further, why are we having this violence against, black trans women? Why are we having so much violence against, why even like medical violence against black, mothers? And why, disabled people, why are they having to, not be able to marry their partner because they might lose their benefits? Like, all these different types of violence are kind of just these structural things that we need to start looking at and examining, and all the different ways they kind of just manifest in our society, and start to kind of deconstruct those one at a time. And it's like a very big and intimidating job. But I think if we start asking ourselves these questions, especially like, being an author, I can ask those questions within a story, and hopefully hope somebody takes that into their real life and starts asking questions there. And so that's kind of the power that I see that I have. My little bit of power, I'm going to try to use it to, make the world a little bit better. And I the best way I can do that is through my words and like a little tiny platform that I have to stand on in front of you here today.
So that was the final question. Thank you so much, Nicky. Don't go away yet.
Okay.
And thank you so much, all of our attendees. You guys also don't go away yet. I have an announcement, and later Nicky will be back on for her own announcement. So thank you, Nicky. I'm going to put myself back on.
Thank you.
See you in a bit.
Okay.
So hi, everyone, again. So as mentioned before, Nicky has very generously donated a super exclusive Dark Days Club, a super exclusive Temper goodie bundle to the stash of author goodies that we have up as perks for donors at the Read for Pixels Rally Up fundraising page. So the goodie bundle number 1, Nicky Drayden's Tempting Temper goodie bundle, includes 1 signed and personalized copy of Temper in paperback, 2 wristbands, 2 sets of trading cards, 1 Temper postcard, 2 book club postcards, and 2 Dick Dick stickers. If you are new to Nicky's work, this is the perfect time to dip your toes into her genre-bending stories, which blur the boundaries between fantasy and science fiction in unexpected ways. The bundle is also the perfect Christmas present for an avid science fiction and fantasy reader. So there were only 3 sets of these Temper bundles available for US donors only, and now there's only 1 left. Thank you, Shirley Burke and Crystal Weaver. It's first come, first serve, so get donating now. There was a goodie bundle number 2, Nicky Drayden's book and tentacle bundle, and we'd like to thank donor Crystal Weaver for getting her hands on this very special goodie bundle, comprising a signed and personalized advanced reader's copy of Nicky's upcoming novel, Escaping Exodus, and 1 hand-crocheted tentacle alien. The donor gets to choose one from any of the little aliens that were pictured. So we'd like to thank Crystal again for donating and getting this goodie bundle. So guys, please give generously. All funds go toward the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. There are also plenty more author goodies available from authors including Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alison Goodman, Elma Alexander, Anna Smith-Spark, Hilary Monahan, and Sarah Langan. Plus, this week is Goodie Bundle Week, so if you are looking for a special Book Plus swag or Book Plus experience bundles, we have bundles of various sizes from Bradley P. Below, David D. Levine, Nicky Drayden, and Richard Morgan. We also have a special auction featuring some rare books from horror maestro Stephen Graham Jones. Books so rare that you can't even get them on eBay. So please give generously to help us reach our donation goal. All funds go towards the Pixel Project's work to help end violence against women. There's information that I'd like to share with you guys. So you can donate to get these goodies on Rally Up at R4P Rally Up 2019. You can bid for the Stephen Graham Jones book on Rally Up at SGJ Charity Auction 2019. And if you want to learn more about Read for Pixels, go to bit.ly/readforpixels. So to find out more about violence against women and what you can do about it, visit the Pixel Project's website at www.pixelproject.net. So, hi Nikki, we're at the end of our session. Do you have any announcements that you'd like to make?
I will just say, Escaping Exodus, it'll be out October 15th, and on my website, nickydrayden.com. If you're interested in swag, I have lots of swag on there. If you pre-order or request it from your library, you can get your own swag free, international, anywhere the post office delivers, I guess.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you for the whole session, Nikki, and thank you everyone else who participated. That's the end of the session. So, bye everyone.
All right. Thank you so much.